Samuel was one of the most important and influential figures in the Bible. Born as an answer to his mother Hannah's desperate prayer, Samuel was dedicated to God from birth and raised in the house of the Lord. This is the full story of Samuel in the Bible. Chapter 1. A child of prayer. In the days when voices were rare. In the time before kings ruled Israel, the land was filled with uncertainty. The tribes were scattered. The judges who once led the people were fading, and the voice of God seemed silent. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. 1 Samuel 3:1. Israel was still God's chosen people, but they had strayed. The Ark of the Covenant remained in the tabernacle at Shiloh, but the fire of faith was flickering. Yet even in this silence, God was preparing a voice. And that voice would begin with the prayer of a broken woman. A woman in tears. Her name was Hannah. She was one of 2 wives of a man named Elkanah, and though he loved her deeply, she carried a sorrow no affection could ease. She was barren. Year after year, she journeyed with Elkanah to Shiloh to worship. And year after year, she returned with no child in her arms. To make things worse, Elkanah's other wife, Peninnah, had many children, and a sharp tongue. Her cruel words pierced Hannah daily. God has closed your womb. You are forgotten. You are not enough. But Hannah did not return insult for insult. She took her grief to God. The silent prayer one year, after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah rose and walked to the tabernacle. Her heart was too heavy to contain. She knelt near the entrance. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Lord Almighty, she whispered in her heart, if you will look on my misery and remember me, and give me a son, I will give him back to you all the days of his life, and no razor will ever touch his head. 1 Samuel 1:11. She vowed that the child, if given, would be dedicated to the Lord, a Nazirite for life. Nearby, Eli, the high priest, watched her. Her silent, tearful prayer confused him. He thought she was drunk. How long will you stay drunk? Eli scolded. Put away your wine. Hannah looked up through her tears. Not so, my lord, she said. I am a woman deeply troubled. I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Eli paused, humbled. Then he spoke with kindness. Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant you what you have asked. A seed of hope. Hannah returned to her husband, and her sorrow began to lift. Not because she saw the answer yet, but because she had been heard. That night, she and Elkanah prayed together, and in the months that followed, her body changed. Her barrenness broke. Her womb carried promise, and in due time, she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. 1 Samuel 1:20. A mother's sacrifice, Hannah loved her son with every part of her soul, but she never forgot her vow. When Samuel was old enough to eat and walk on his own, she took him back to Shiloh. She brought not only her child, but offerings of worship, a 3-year-old bull, flour, and wine. She stood before Eli again and said, Pardon me, my lord. I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he will be given over to the Lord. 1 Samuel 1:26-28. And she left Samuel at the tabernacle, a boy in God's house. From that day on, Samuel lived and served under Eli the priest. He helped with temple duties, opening the doors, tending the lamps, watching the sacrifices. He learned the rhythms of worship and the holy traditions of Israel. He was a boy among robes, walking softly between the shadows of sacred things. But God was not silent anymore. A seed had been planted, and Samuel would grow to be not just a servant, but a prophet. Hannah's song. Hannah returned home without her child, but not without joy. She sang a song that echoed through generations. My heart rejoices in the Lord. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He raises the poor from the dust. He seats them with princes. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. 1 Samuel 2:1-10. In giving up her child, Hannah received something eternal. Samuel wasn't just her son. He was God's, and the voice of God would soon speak through him. Chapter 2. The Voice in the Night. A young boy in a silent sanctuary. The tabernacle at Shiloh stood still in the quiet of night. The golden lamp of God flickered, casting soft light across sacred relics. The Ark of the Covenant, the veil, the altar. Priest and servant alike had gone to rest. Somewhere in a small chamber near the holy room, a young boy named Samuel lay sleeping. He was still a child, small hands, curious heart, humble steps. He swept floors, he lit lamps. He watched Eli, the old priest, and obeyed with reverence. But Samuel did not yet know the voice of the Lord. He had never heard it. Not yet. Because in those days, God rarely spoke aloud. A priest in the twilight nearby, Eli slept heavily. His eyes were weak, nearly blind. His years of service had turned into routine. He had once been faithful, but compromise had crept in through his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, wicked men who abused their priesthood. Eli had rebuked them, but not removed them. And so, though Eli still ministered, the presence of God was quiet. The people did what was right in their own eyes. The word of the Lord was rare. But that night, something changed. A voice in the stillness. As Samuel lay near the ark, wrapped in a wool blanket, a voice cut through the silence. Samuel. The boy stirred. He blinked in the dim light. He recognized the voice, not as divine, but familiar. He rose quickly, ran down the hall to Eli's room, and stood at the door. Here I am, he said. You called me. Eli groaned, turning on his mat. I didn't call you. Go back and lie down. Samuel obeyed, confused but respectful. He returned to his place, curled under the blanket, closed his eyes. And again, Samuel? A second and third time. Once more, Samuel jumped up and ran to Eli. Here I am. You called me. Again, Eli denied it. Go back to bed, my son. The third time it happened, Eli sat up slowly. His aged hands shook, but something in his spirit stirred. Could it be? Could it be that God was speaking again? Could the silence finally be breaking? Eli, though weary, gave Samuel new instruction. If he calls you again, say, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Samuel nodded, heart pounding. He returned to his bed, no longer just a boy, but a listener. A divine encounter. The sanctuary quieted again. And then, Samuel? Samuel. But this time, it wasn't just a voice. It was the Lord himself standing there. Not a dream, not imagination. A presence. A call. A moment that would mark Samuel forever. Samuel sat up, breath caught in his throat. Then, as instructed, he said, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. 1 Samuel 3:10. And the Lord spoke. A hard first message. God's message was not gentle. I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears it tingle. 1 Samuel 3:11. God told Samuel that judgment was coming upon Eli's house. His sons had brought disgrace to the priesthood, and Eli had failed to restrain them. The Lord said the guilt of Eli's family would never be atoned for by sacrifice. This was Samuel's first prophecy. Not glory, not promise. judgment. For a boy raised under Eli's care, it was a heavy burden. The morning after, Samuel lay awake until dawn. He didn't want to see Eli's face. He didn't want to repeat what he had heard. But when morning came, he opened the tabernacle doors like he always did. Eli called out to him, "Samuel, my son." "Here I am," Eli asked gently but firmly. "What did the Lord say to you?" "Do not hide it from me." And so Samuel told him everything. No edits, no softening, just truth. Eli received the word with resignation. He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. A prophet is born. From that day forward. Samuel's life changed. He was no longer just a temple boy. He was a messenger of God. The Lord was with Samuel as he grew, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. 1 Samuel 3:19. Everyone, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, recognized that Samuel was a prophet of the Lord, and the Lord continued to appear to him, revealing his word. The silence was over. God was speaking again, and the voice he chose was that of a boy who listened. Chapter 3. A prophet is born. A new dawn in Israel. The sun rose differently over Israel now. In the tabernacle at Shiloh, where God's voice had once grown silent, a new sound echoed through its sacred halls, the voice of a prophet. That prophet was no seasoned elder, no warrior, no king. He was a boy named Samuel. And from the day the Lord called his name in the stillness of night, Samuel's words began to carry divine weight. The word of the Lord returns. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. 1 Samuel 3:21. God did not stop speaking. Through Samuel, the Lord began to guide, correct, and restore. Soon the people of Israel, who had long been scattered, confused, and spiritually dry, began to gather again. Not around a priest, not around a king, but around a prophet. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. 1 Samuel 3:20. The silence that had once gripped the nation was broken. Hope had returned. Eli's decline. While Samuel rose, Eli's house declined. His sons, Hophni and Phinehas, continued to abuse their positions, stealing from sacrifices, seducing women at the tabernacle gates, and dishonoring God's name. Though Eli had scolded them, he had not removed them. And now the Lord's patience had run out. Samuel's first prophecy, that judgment would fall on Eli's family, was about to be fulfilled. A nation at war. Around this time, the Philistines, a powerful enemy nation, attacked Israel. The Israelites, desperate and poorly led, marched out to fight, but were quickly defeated. Stunned and fearful, the elders made a fateful decision. Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord from Shiloh, so that it may go with us and save us from the hand of our enemies. 1 Samuel 4:3. But they didn't seek God's guidance. They treated the ark like a magic token, a symbol of God, but without submission to God. The ark is taken. Hophni and Phinehas, Eli's corrupt sons, carried the ark into battle. But God did not honor it. That day, Israel was defeated again. 30,000 soldiers died. The Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines, and both Hophni and Phinehas were killed. When news reached Shiloh, a messenger ran to Eli. The old priest sat by the road, blind and trembling. "The ark has been captured," the messenger said, "and your sons are dead." At those words, Eli fell backward from his seat, broke his neck, and died. The prophecy Samuel had received came to pass. Ichabod. The glory has departed. That same day, Phinehas' wife, pregnant and near delivery, went into labor. As she gave birth, she heard the devastating news. Her husband was dead. Her brother-in-law was dead. Her father-in-law was dead. The ark of God was gone. She named the child Ichabod, meaning the glory has departed from Israel. Because without God's presence, Israel was hollow. But in the ashes of defeat, a light still glowed. Samuel. Samuel, the prophet judge. As Samuel grew, he took on a unique role in Israel. He was not only a prophet who spoke for God. He became a judge, a spiritual and civic leader. Like Moses before him, Samuel was both God's messenger and the people's guide. He did not seek power. He did not rule with force. He simply listened to God and did what was right. A life of integrity. Unlike Eli's sons, Samuel lived in purity. He traveled from town to town, Bethel, Gilgal, Mizpah, settling disputes, teaching the law, calling people back to faith. He returned regularly to Ramah, his hometown, where he built an altar to the Lord. His life became a living example that faithfulness matters, that God still speaks, that obedience, not title, is what God honors, not just a prophet. So was Samuel just a prophet? Number. He was a miracle child, born through prayer, a faithful servant, even as a boy, a prophetic voice, speaking when no one else could hear, a judge and reformer, restoring worship and justice, a bridge, linking the time of judges to the time of kings. Samuel would go on to anoint both Saul and David, shaping the destiny of Israel. But his power wasn't in his position. It was in his posture before God. He listened, he obeyed, he walked humbly, and God used him to reshape a nation. Chapter 4. A nation without a king, Israel's deepest need. For years after the death of Eli and the fall of his corrupt sons, the people of Israel lived in quiet mourning. Their cities were fractured, their armies scattered, and the Ark of the Covenant, the very symbol of God's presence, was still in Philistine hands. But Samuel remained. He walked from village to village, urging the people not to seek strength in weapons or alliances, but in repentance. He reminded them that God had not abandoned them, but they had abandoned God. If you are returning to the Lord with all your hearts, Samuel told them, then rid yourselves of the foreign gods and the Ashtoreths, and commit yourselves to the Lord and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. 1 Samuel 7:3. And for the first time in generations, the people listened. A nation repents. In a powerful moment of national surrender, Samuel called all of Israel to gather at Mizpah, a high place of worship and repentance. Men, women, and children came from every tribe. They fasted. They confessed their sins. They wept for their idols. And they made sacrifices to the Lord. Samuel stood before them, not as a king or warrior, but as a prophet of righteousness. And he prayed. He offered a lamb as a burnt offering and cried out on behalf of the nation. The battle at Mizpah. But while Israel was repenting, the Philistines were preparing. They heard that Israel had gathered at Mizpah unarmed and vulnerable. They saw an opportunity to crush them once and for all. As the Philistine armies approached, the Israelites panicked. They turned to Samuel and pleaded, "Do not stop crying out to the Lord our God for us, that he may rescue us from the hand of the Philistines." 1 Samuel 7:8. Samuel raised his hands, not to lead troops, but to pray. And as the Philistines advanced, God answered. Thunder from heaven. That day the Lord thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines, and threw them into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. 1 Samuel 7:10. The sky roared, the enemy scattered. Israel, filled with courage and faith, pursued them and defeated them, not by swords, but by the power of God. Ebenezer, the stone of help. After the victory, Samuel took a large stone and set it upright between Mizpah and Shen. He called it Ebenezer, saying, Thus far, the Lord has helped us. 1 Samuel 7:12. It was more than a monument. It was a reminder, a declaration that Israel's safety and strength would never come from chariots or kings, but from the Lord alone. The rise of a new desire. For many years, Israel had peace under Samuel's leadership. He judged fairly. He spoke truth. He walked in integrity. But Samuel grew old. His sons, Joel and Abijah, were appointed as judges in Beersheba. Sadly, they did not follow in their father's footsteps. They took bribes and perverted justice, much like Eli's sons before them. And once again, the hearts of the people began to wander. This time, they didn't turn to idols. They turned to politics. They wanted a king. A bold demand. The elders of Israel came to Samuel at Ramah. They stood before him, cloaked in concern and pride. "You are old," they said bluntly, "and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." 1 Samuel 8:5. The words pierced Samuel's heart. He had led them for decades. He had prayed for them, fought for them, delivered them. And now they wanted someone else. Rejection and revelation. Samuel was deeply disturbed. He took his pain to the Lord. And God answered, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." 1 Samuel 8:7. God knew their hearts. This was not just about Samuel's age or his son's corruption. This was about a deeper issue. They didn't want to be different. They wanted to be like the nations around them. They no longer wanted to be led by faith, but ruled by force. A prophetic warning. Samuel returned to the people and gave them a warning. This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He told them how their sons would be taken into battle. Their daughters would become servants, their land, their flocks, their freedom, all taxed and taken. You will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. 1 Samuel 8:18. But the people refused to listen. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we will be like the other nations, with a king to lead us and go out before us and fight our battles." And so God said, "Give them what they ask for." The prophet obeys. Though disappointed, Samuel obeyed the Lord. He sent the people home, and he began to wait for the man whom God would choose, the man who would be Israel's first king. Samuel had led with truth, but now his next role would be even more delicate, to anoint a king without becoming a servant to the people's desires. Chapter 5. The People's King. A search begins. With donkeys. The story of Israel's first king didn't begin with a crown or a battle. It began with lost donkeys. In the hill country of Ephraim lived a man named Kish from the tribe of Benjamin. Kish was wealthy, and he had a son, tall, handsome, and strong. His name was Saul. He stood head and shoulders above everyone else. Outwardly, he looked like the very image of a king. One day, Kish's donkeys wandered off. He told Saul to take a servant and go look for them. For days, they searched across the countryside, but the animals were nowhere to be found. Saul, frustrated and ready to give up, said to his servant, "Let's go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us." But the servant had another idea. "In this town lives a man of God. Everything he says comes true. Let's go ask him where the donkeys are." That man of God was Samuel, and Saul's lost donkeys were just a divine setup. A prophet prepared. The day before Saul arrived, God spoke to Samuel. "About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him ruler over my people Israel. He will deliver them from the hand of the Philistines." 1 Samuel 9:16. So when Saul entered the town looking for donkeys, Samuel was already waiting. not to find livestock, but to anoint a king. Samuel greeted Saul and invited him to a sacred meal. He gave him the seat of honor and spoke words that stunned him. "To whom is all the desire of Israel turned, if not to you and your whole family line?" Saul replied, confused, "But I'm from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe, and my family is the least in it." He didn't see himself as a leader, but God had chosen him. Anointed in secret, the next morning, Samuel took Saul aside privately. He poured a flask of oil over his head and kissed him. "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance?" 1 Samuel 10:1. He told Saul that signs would follow, prophesying, confirmation, and a new heart. And just as Samuel promised, everything came true. The Spirit of God came upon Saul, and he began to prophesy with the prophets, astonishing those who had known him as a mere farmer's son. But Samuel did not reveal Saul's kingship to the nation. Not yet. First, the people had to see with their own eyes what it meant to ask for a king. A king revealed later, Samuel called the tribes together at Mizpah. The people gathered, expecting the prophet to announce something important. Samuel stood before them and said, "This is what the Lord says. I brought you out of Egypt. I delivered you from every oppressor. But you have rejected your God and said, 'No, appoint a king over us.' So now present yourselves before the Lord." Then by casting lots, tribe by tribe, family by family, the choice narrowed. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was chosen. But when they looked for him, he was missing. He was hiding among the supplies. Samuel smiled, not in amusement, but perhaps with sadness. Already Saul showed signs of fear, not faith. They found him, pulled him forward, and stood him before the people. He was tall, striking, a leader by appearance. "Long live the king!" the people shouted. And just like that, Israel had their first monarch, a king without a crown. Saul returned home quietly after the ceremony. Some welcomed him. Others scoffed. "How can this man save us?" But Saul remained silent. Samuel, meanwhile, recorded the duties of kingship and placed them before the Lord. Though Saul had been chosen, the transition was not yet complete. The people had their king, but they still needed to learn what kingship really meant. And so did Saul.